Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Victorian Studio Podcast. My name is Maureen and I'm coming to you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada on Sunday, August 23rd, 2015. Yes, Sunday. I'm recording a day early. I think I'm going to change my recording days from Mondays to Sundays now. Now that the summer is coming to an end, so are my Mondays off at work. I get about 6 weeks vacation now, and what I do to stretch those out is I take every Monday off from May till September, which is great to have a long weekend throughout the whole summer. So when I started this podcast, I thought that would be a good day to try my hand at podcasting when it was quiet in the house, when hubby was at work. But now that fall is coming, yay, I thought I would transfer my recording days from Mondays to Sundays and see how that goes. I think it'll be fine. So I wanted to welcome everyone for either returning or welcome to new viewers checking me out for the first time. I hope you enjoy yourself here. This is mostly a knitting and spinning podcast, although once in a while I will add in a few other things such as my other hobbies, collections, that kind of thing. And today I'm going to tack on to the end of this podcast a tour of my, or at least a part of a tour of my studio. A few episodes ago I did do a tour of the knitting section of my room here, which is basically a closet, but how I have my knitting yarn, my stash, and everything all organized in there. I reviewed that a few episodes ago, so I've been asked by a few viewers what it is exactly that I have in all these drawers behind me. So I thought today I would give you a tour of my desk area. So it will include just the top of my desk, all the different drawers, what's in all of them, and all the little knickknacks and how I store all of my tools and craft supplies. So I hope you enjoy that. So it's been a busy week. I was mostly working on one project, and I didn't get any projects completed this week though, but I will share with you a finished object that I did last year, a historical finished object. So first of all, what I wanted to do was give a few shout outs to fellow podcasters. Back in episodes 5 and 9, I listed quite a few podcasts that I enjoy watching while I'm knitting. And if you check back on those show notes for those episodes, you'll see links to all of the podcasts that I mentioned there. But I wanted to mention a few more. There's a lot that I watch. I try to check out all the new knitting podcasts, and also addicted to all of the long-term podcasts. Some of them have been running for years, so when I find one that I haven't seen before and they do have old episodes, I like to go back to episode 1 and start from the beginning and watch all the way through. And so I've done that with a few podcasts, and as I find more, I will share them with you. Rather than giving you the whole list all in one episode, it would take me a long time. There are so many that I really enjoy, but today I wanted to mention a few that I make sure that I catch every week. And the first one is Dawn and James in California at Wolfe Farms. They're a delightful couple. I love the interaction between the husband and wife. They're both so very talented. Dawn with her knitting, of course, and her yoga, and James with his woodworking. These two never stop doing all kinds of things. They're always busy, and it's so cool to see everything that they come up with each week. So I really enjoy seeing Wolfe Farms and seeing what they're up to down in California. And a few other international, because obviously in California in the States is international to me. The other international ones that I thought I'd mention today is Mina in Bahrain at the Knitting Expat podcast. She is just wonderful to listen to. Her wonderful accent is so so cool. And her knitting is beautiful. She also has an Etsy shop where she sells her homemade project bags, and they are just wonderful as well. So not only is she a talented knitter, she's a very talented sewer as well. And she has 2 black cats as well, and I love watching her Instagram feed and seeing what those 2 are up to as well. Another US podcast that I like to catch whenever it is on is the Stockinette Zombies, and I think they're pretty much weekly. Megan and Amy are not too far from me here. They are from Minnesota, and they have been going for years and years and years. It's one that I went back and tried to catch as many old episodes as I could. And I mean, so talented, these women. And not only do they knit, but they are great organizers and have a very successful yearly retreat called the Zombie Apocalypse. And they're so close to me. I'm very, very tempted to see if daughter would like to attend the next one. And it's coming up next June the 1st, I believe. But sign-ups, registration is coming up in a few weeks. I'm going to have to make a decision, I think, pretty soon. Because every year I hear so many wonderful things about that retreat. And it's a limited amount of people that can go. So I know that if I do want to go, we have to make that decision and see about heading down to Minnesota and joining them. So that's something that, I'll talk more about and see what we decide if we're going to go next year or not. And the last podcast I wanted to mention today was Disa at Disascraftwork. She's in Sweden, and she is such a delight to watch. It's so neat to see other cultures, even though we have a shared passion for knitting, to see everything that inspires her. She has a lot of episodes outdoors in the forest, and it is so wonderful to watch her. She's really an inspiration as well. Lots of fun to watch Disa. She's really funny and very, very talented knitter as well. So those are a few if you want to check out, you haven't checked out before. I'd be surprised if you haven't, because they're all very popular podcasts, but if you haven't checked them out, I would highly recommend all of those. And in the future episodes, I'll review some more podcasts. There's so many more that I can list off, and I'll do a few every once in a while. So that's what I've been up to this week. When I do get time to knit, I make sure that I catch up on all of those episodes that come up new each week, besides all my favorites. So I guess I'll start with the no finished objects. As I said, I was working mostly on one project this week, which means that nothing got off the needles. So I thought I would share with you a historical finished object. It's a shawl that I did back in May 2014, and it's the first shawl that I ever completed, and it is a very popular one on Ravelry. Thousands of people have made it because it is so easy, but it gives you such a beautiful result. And that's the Age of Brass and Steam shawl, and that is by Orange Flower Yarn, and that's her Ravelry name, and it's quite big there. I hope you can see it. And it was a very simple shawl, but it was such a pleasure to learn the new techniques that a knitter needs to make these triangular shawls, on how you start them with a garter stitch tab, and how to bind it off, the yarn overs on the edges. And I really love the stockinette with just a little bit of lace and a little bit of garter edging in between each section. I really love the effect. And the yarn I used for this, because it was fairly new in my knitting career, it's something that I just picked up at Michael's, and that's the Red Heart Boutique Treasure. And I believe this is just, well, it's 70% acrylic, 30% wool, so it's not totally acrylic, but it is very, very soft. And since I was a fairly new knitter, I hadn't yet got into like indie dyers and high-end wools yet, and I really loved, of course, green and blues. Again, I really love the look of this, so I got a few balls of this to try out, and I really love the way it made this Age of Brass and Steam shawl. So I thought I would share that with you. I've already worn it a few times and gotten a lot of compliments on that at work. So it was a lot of fun to use to be my first experience knitting shawls. Even though it's not a lot of lace, it was a great first project to try out. So what I did work on this week were my socks. I did get a little bit done, but I had to work on these at home because I was at a point where it wasn't just the straight stockinette. I'm doing these, if you didn't see the last episode, 2 at a time on 2 separate sets of circulars. And I am using the Knit Picks Felici Gummy Bear yarn, and believe this is just, I think the Gummy Bear is sold out. I think there's only maybe 2 colors left at Knit Picks for their special reserve yarn. So I'm glad that I got the ones that I was able to grab in the last few weeks. So this week what I did on these were the heel flaps. And this is just a slip stitch heel flap, so I got both of those done on each sock, or one on each. So the next thing that I need to do is pick up the side stitches and do, well, first the heel turn, and then I'll pick up the stitches to do the gusset. And then after that I'll be able to take them back and work on them at lunch hours, because doing the foot will be, again, just the straight stockinette, which is just an easy project at that point to carry and do wherever I am, without having to worry about counting too much. So those will get a little more work done on them this week. Now I was watching another podcast here. I can't remember who it was. It was mentioning that they were using smaller needles on their Knit Picks Felici project because they found that the yarn stretches after washing, and I hope it doesn't. I'm using 1.5s on these. My regular number of stitches. This is just my vanilla sock pattern. So I'm hoping that they won't stretch out too much, but if they do, well, then I'll know for the next pair that I make with these, because I've got a few balls of Felici. I think I ended up getting, let's see, I've just got them over here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I ended up getting 14 balls in all. 6 of those are in the green Highland color, so I'm going to use those for a different project, but the other sets of 2, because you need 2 balls per pair of socks, so that's 3 more pairs of socks I'll probably do in this Felici. Then I'll know that if they do stretch, I'll go down to maybe 1s for my next pair. So it'll be interesting to see if that's in fact true. So, because those are my first experience with the Felici yarn, I guess I'll just learn as I go. So that's a current work in progress. The other item that I was working on this week was my Roosevelt cardigan, and I'm happy to say that I'm finished the first sleeve. So that is, let's see, I'll give you the details of this. This is by Amanda Schusger, the Roosevelt cardigan. I'll show you the picture here. It's a paid for pattern, and it's by Interweave. And I've completed the first sleeve, and so I'll be going on to the left sleeve next. And I mentioned before, this is my epic project for the Fiber Trek Podcast's Shackleton Cal, and it's a knit along that gets knitters to create something that they consider epic. And for me, doing a cardigan is epic. It's going to be my first completed cardigan. Last year I tried to use this Wensleydale Sheep Shop wool, long wool, from Yorkshire, England. I used it and attempted to do another cardigan, but I tore that one out because I just wasn't pleased with the fabric that I was getting, and I was too new a knitter to really be doing a good job on that. So I reskeined the yarn and are using it on this Roosevelt cardigan. So I'm really pleased with the fabric I'm getting on this. I'm using US number 6s, and this has cables along the cuff, and then they run up the whole length of the sleeve. So try to show you this in the light. So the cuff cables with a single cable running the whole length of the sleeve all the way up. So the first one is done, and it used just over the first skein of wool, and I have 10, so I have 9 left, so I believe I have plenty to finish the cardigan off with. So I'm pleased with the progress that I made on that this week. So the last project that I was working on this week has a bit of a story to it. It's living in my fondant fiber cat's bag. I had to mention that because this week, don't have it yet, but I was thrilled that I was able to catch another one of Deb's updates and got another cat bag. And it's not like this one, it's a different pattern, but it's so adorable. I can hardly wait till it arrives and show that to you. So, as I mentioned, my shawl project is in this bag, and I hit another snag with it, and it resulted in something that I think is best. Instead of describing to you here, I'll show it to you this way. Yes, so as you can see, the Multnomah shawl is no more. I ended up making another mistake on it, so I mean, 3 strikes and you're out. I first, a few weeks ago, realized I had a drop stitch, had to go down, and I fixed that. I was very proud. I fixed that stitch, and I couldn't see, where it was. So that was a good experience to learn that. And then another week later, I had some kind of misplaced yarn over, so there was a hole in it. I had to, again, drop down and fix it up. And the straw that broke the camel's back, pardon me, was last week. I realized that the feather and fan border just wasn't looking right. Now this is a free pattern, so I'm not really giving away anything. You do the feather and fan on the first side of the shawl before the spine, and those were coming out fine. They were lining up correctly. But because you have to move the markers for the spine because you're always adding on to the end, the spine is actually moving. You have to move your markers. And obviously I wasn't doing that correctly because the last half of the feather and fan pattern wasn't lining up correctly. I could see once I've done a few that it just didn't look right. And I've done feather and fan before in Sarah Lawsey's beautiful winter breeze cowl, so I knew what it should look like. So I thought, okay, I can either just tear it back to the stockinette, or it was garter stitch, to the garter stitch section and redo the whole feather and fan section before, or just call it a day and just realize that this wasn't working out at this time and frog it. So as you could see, that's what I decided to do. I just frogged the whole thing, rewound the yarn, and redoing it in a new project, which I'll show you. Now, it has nothing, I don't want to say anything bad about the pattern. I think it's just something that I'm going to have more experience to do. A lot of people have done the Multnomah shawl successfully. I mean, there's like 7,500 finished Multnomahs, but I was interested to see if anybody else was having this same problem that I was. And I noticed that there was more than 500 projects that are either hibernating or frogged on Ravelry. People who, sometimes it's just not a good match between yarn and pattern, but sometimes it was difficulty in reading the instructions. And these, I think, they're from a few years ago. So she did do, which I found out too late, she did post on her blog the miscellanea instructions on how to move the markers. So there are pages of how to do it. And frankly, I was getting a headache just trying to figure it all out. So I thought, okay, sod it. I'm going to just start over with something a lot more simple, and maybe one day I'll try a Multnomah again. It's a beautiful shawl, but I just don't think this is the right time to tackle it once again. So I looked on Ravelry for a pattern that was probably a little more my speed, and I think the title of this shawl speaks for itself when I think I picked the right one. It's called the Easy Peasy Shawl 2.0, and actually it wasn't because of the title, although it's very apropos for me. This is by Megan Delorme, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry as well. But I really loved the design of the shawl. I really love the lattice work. It's lace work, but it looks like lattice in between stockinette sections and some garter rows to highlight those sections. And what made me think of my Age of Brass and Steam, it was very similar with the different sections. So I think that's more my style anyway, and it is really, really easy to do, and probably about a third of the way through it already. So again, I am using still my FON dye yarn, just because my pretty face turned your head yarn. It's 75% superwash wool and 25% nylon from my friends Ellie and Dave at FON Dye. So I'm still using your yarn, you two. And I'm thrilled the way it's coming out, and I love the way this pattern with the stockinette shows off the yarn even better than the multnomah. So obviously it will look a lot better once it's blocked, but it starts out with a stockinette section, then it does some garter ridge, then it does this great easy lattice work, garter, stockinette, then it'll do garter, lattice, so it goes through a few repetitions of that pattern. So I really love the way the yarn's colors and tones are coming out with this pattern. So much nicer. So all's well that ends well, I guess. But yeah, it's too bad that I had to undo about, well, hours and hours of work on the multnomah. It took 11 minutes to frog that project. But all knitters go through that, and that's the great thing about knitting. If you screw up, you know, it's time that is lost. But other than that, you're reusing all of your supplies most of the time if you can reskein that yarn and reuse it. And most you can. I think the only ones that I've heard that are difficult to frog and reuse are things like mohair and those kinds of really delicate yarns. So this is working out wonderfully, so I'm really pleased with it, and it's going so quickly. It's great. I love the big sections of stockinette that I can just knit, and again, watch my favorite podcasts and really come along really well, because that is just a couple of days' work that I had on that shawl. As I said, I'm already a fair ways on with that. So I hope you enjoyed my little silent movie on frogging the multnomah shawl. So that's about all I have to share with you knitting-wise this week. As I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, I will tack on to the end a video that I made with a tour of my desk behind me. It will show in more detail what exactly is in those drawers and how I store my craft supplies and my tools on the top of my desk here. More videos of the rest of my room will follow in future episodes. So if you'd like to see exactly what's in back of me here, it's about a 20-minute video if you'd like to stay to watch that. In the meantime, I'll say goodbye, and I hope that you'll join me again next week for a visit in my Victorian studio. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome to my studio. I thought today I would give you a short tour of what's behind me when I film. That's the desk area of my studio. So I'll take you on a little tour and show you what exactly is in each of those cabinet drawers. First of all, I guess we'll say hello to Tawny. Hey, Tauntaun. In her usual spot. Alright, so as you can see, I've tried to collect as many antique items as I could to store all of my craft supplies in. This room started out as a room that I could do scrapbooking and card making. And it started out with cabinets and containers that were mostly plastic. And if I wanted it to look more antique and Victorian, I thought I would repurpose a lot of items to store my craft supplies in. So you'll see that as I move towards more details here. So I'll start over here This is where I have my paper towels dispensed. It's a butcher paper cutter, so I just throw some paper towels on there, and that way I can pull them off when needed. I also have a McCoy string dispenser. That's an antique item, a vintage item, that my daughter gave me for, I believe it was Mother's Day this year. And so it's awesome. I have my hand-spun yarn in there, so whenever I need a length of spare yarn for, maybe tying off something, I can pull it right out of the cat's mouth and cut it as I need it. So there it's a cat holding a ball of yarn. There's also an antique clipboard there that I could just pull out when needed. And this picture in behind here, that's an actual invoice from a company from 1894. And the company that the invoice is for a paper company called DM Wing and Paper Company. Now I'm sorry, it's kind of dark because we are having severe thunderstorms today. But why I wanted to show you that is because this cabinet, when I cleaned it up, I found that it was from the DM and Wing Paper Company in Cincinnati, Ohio. I found, it's probably going to be hard for you to see. That says Cincinnati down there. And I was really surprised when I found that, and then also found on eBay an invoice from the same company. So I thought that was a pretty cool addition to the studio. So above that I have some antique keys. Now this room isn't very large. It's only about 8 by 10, but this little alcove section is only about 6 feet long. So underneath the shelving that I put up is this curtain rod, and it runs the whole length of this area. There's a few hooks that attach it onto the wall, and the rod itself just slips in over the hooks, so I can take it off easily to either install or remove these ribbons. So I have them kind of in an order of color, and I can pull out any length I want and just cut it off as needed. So it's a really handy way to both store and use ribbon for like paper crafting projects. So behind this antique scale is the first cabinet that I'll show you on the top here. And try not to make you too dizzy as I move in. This first art piece that you'll see on the left hand side, that's something that I made for Tim Holtz, for my Tim Holtz autograph actually. And I have a video in my video sections of my Victorian Studio Podcast YouTube page on exactly how I made that frame. Now Tim, he is somebody who has, he's a designer and has all kinds of products that I really enjoy using, the same kind of aesthetic. He really loves the antique and grungy style, so I use a lot of his products, and I've won a few of his contests, so he sent me a really nice letter and autographs, so that was very sweet. So I knew I had to make something special to store that in. So beside that is another art project that I did. It's a sculpture made of antique gears from both watches and clocks, and also the large clock that kind of sticks halfway out of the box and half in is a Tim Holtz die. So a lot of the products that I used on that project were Tim Holtz. So just something a little bit steampunky in style. On top of that, I have a few hourglasses. And here is an item that I found online, and it's an antique rubber band container. I don't know if you can see, it says rubber bands on the, it's a celluloid cover, and It's from the 1800s, and of course I have to keep my rubber bands in there. This is another art project that I did. It's a little tiny cabinet that has drawers that actually go in and out. I can do this one-handed here. It's made out of matchbooks. So I had a lot of fun creating this really, really tiny cabinet. And there's some Beswick bunnies that I adore. My room is filled with all kinds of like knickknacks and that kind of thing. So this is the first cabinet that I got myself. It's a watchmaker's cabinet, and that top does flip up, and it has an interior that has like a green felt inside, but I just keep it closed so I can store things on top. But I got this pretty cheap because there was one drawer missing, unfortunately. But I didn't mind because it gave me an opportunity to have a place to store some pins that I like to use. So I'll just show you some of these drawers. When you're card making, you use all kinds of brads and decorations. So I'll just show you a few of these. So each drawer has a different kind of brad, or these are buckles that you can change the color on. Some more decorations. Those are beads. Those are jewelry findings. I'd like to actually make with the beads and the jewelry findings one day my own stitch markers. So, but for now, that's what's in those. And those are eyes that I use on my toys. So I recolor them as needed, but in the front there, that's what those are. Again, more brads. We would get all different styles for when we were doing card making and scrapbooking. This is just a mismatch of different kinds of findings that I would use on projects. A lot, again, Tim Holtz stuff. And some sticky pearls or jewels. Those, again, more jewelry findings, larger rings, and more items that I can use on projects. So that cabinet basically stores all the smalls, as we call them, for my card making or when I'm making like a collage for something. It's a great way to keep everything all organized. So underneath that was another set of drawers. I found this set of drawers on a trip to Minneapolis one year, actually Buffalo, Minnesota. There's a lot of antique places in Buffalo, so I found this cabinet. And in these drawers I have some what they call dies for a cutting machine called the Cuttlebug. I also have a book of drawings and a tool and some base material for carving. You can carve your own stamps. And this is a tool drawer, so I have all kinds of like small screwdrivers, punches, sanding, that kind of thing. And these are brushes and blenders. So I have a few larger brushes in here, some blenders that you would use for either charcoal or pastel, and of course all kinds of blenders that I can use for inks and other materials. So that's those two cabinets. Now the main cabinet I purchased online, and it was absolutely filthy when I bought it, and it took a really good scrubbing to actually get the wood grain to show. But I was thrilled when I did give it a good bath that it still had some of its writing on the cabinet. So that's why I know it was from the DM and Wing Paper Company of Cincinnati, Ohio. On the top of it, I have a variety of knickknacks and tools. Some Some of them Victorian, some of them not. That little owl was made by my daughter and given to me at Christmas time. So that's really cute. And I have a spool of heavier string with some scissors in that string holder. And so a Victorian postcard talking about Canadian soldiers. And those 2 or 3 items on the wall, they're all cast iron, and one is a hook, another is a matchbook holder, and another a clip. So those are all Victorian items. I bought at different times, but they all go well together. I also have a collection of vintage rulers. So I have those in that other holder. And over here I have my brushes and larger tools in some silverware. I have a lot of silverware in the room. And that's a coffee pot that holds the brushes. So you can get a better look. That's a silver coffee pot. And then a silver vase, or actually goblet, that holds some miscellaneous tools. That wooden item in the background is for typesetting, and it would hold stamps. So I thought that was pretty cool. Cool find. Okay, the buffalo in the front was sent to me by a dear friend in Oregon. She found it in Portland, and it says Canada's National Parks 1937, and it's an actual metal plate that you would attach onto your license plate so that when you paid your yearly park fee, they would let you in through the front gate, showing that that badge on your license plate. So I thought that was so very neat and so great of her to send that to me. The bird there is a photographer's bird, and what it was attached onto a tube, and a photographer back in the 1800s would use the bird. There would be air that would go through the tube, and the bird actually tweets. I can't do it one-handed. Tweets, and the wings move and the beak moves, and it makes a sound so that they can use it when they're doing like portraits of children and getting their attention. So a photographer's bird. There's an old magnifying glass there, a few older tools, some newer ones that I use. Also, you know, toothpicks, Q-tips, that kind of thing to use during crafting. And palette knives in another silver container at the back for painting. And at the front, this is a glass desk organizer that's from the early 1900s. And I have a couple of Canadian badges there. I like anything that has crowns and that kind of thing on them, obviously. So that's my dad's old pencil that I got when they moved, and he had it in his shop. He used those square pencils. I have a whole case of them, but that's one that he used a lot. So I love having that. So those all sit on top of this wonderful cabinet, and I'll just show you what I store in there. Okay, so this top part just has some miscellaneous things like papers, pen refills, pins. This has my glue. So there's different kinds of glue in there. E6000 is great for using for crafting. It holds metal and wood really well. And this is Multi-Mat. It's a glue that you use for paper crafting. I have a couple of jars of that. And glue sticks, that kind of thing. And then over here, when you're paper crafting or making cards, you need a lot of tape. This is score tape, foam tape, and washi tape. And this is a drawer of reference. I'll show you in a minute some of my markers, but this is a reference that I made for which markers I have and what colors they are. It's great for matching up colors. This is also a book of drawings that I have for color selection and different kinds of things, different color tests with different colors, that kind of thing. I also have a color wheel in here as well. And I have some other reference things in the bottom of that. And in this bottom drawer I have some papers. Some of them are drawings that I've done, and other miscellaneous papers. So that's great that it holds a full like 9 by 12 papers if I need to. So that's that main cabinet. Beside it I have an antique chalkboard that I use a lot. And this cabinet here I built. Over top of it I kind of refinished this old frame. It was in a sad state, so I refinished it and just put some antique keys and lace in there. And a couple of old items on top of this black cabinet. Now this black cabinet is actually 3 cabinets that I painted black, and I created dividers just using a stiff cardboard painted black and inserted to hold all of my Copic markers. Now these are alcohol markers that many artists use for paper crafting, and there's well over 300. Can't remember how many I have here, but I have more than enough here that I can use for any kind of coloring session that I want to do on cards and any projects. So they're even great for coloring in ribbon. So that's why I have a lot of white ribbon, because I can actually color it any color I want. And I also have white flowers, you know, the silk flowers. And so if I want to do a card with both ribbon and matching flowers, I can actually use these Copic markers. They're alcohol based and they color in exactly the colors that I want, so everything matches. So that's wonderful. I have a little antique muffin tin that holds a variety of both vintage and newer knickknacks. And I have an old teacup and saucer I made a tea cozy for, and that holds some of my my buttons that I'll be using for knitting. This little cabinet here stores a bunch of my inks, ink pads. Some ink or stamps are just rubber, so they don't have a back, so you use these clear holders to stamp with. So that's all in that cabinet. My Beswick animals there, my horses that hubby and daughter have given me. And daughter and I found this plate in North Dakota, I believe. No, it was in Minnesota as well. And it's inscribed on the back. Now it's a little mice on the front. I'll show you the inscription here. Turn it around. It says Merry Christmas, and it's probably hard to read there, from Flossie, and it's dated 1905. I'm trying to read it while I'm showing it to you, to Mrs. Bell. So it's probably maybe a teacher's gift. So I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, it's a beautiful hand-painted plate from 1905. So I think that makes a nice decoration in the studio. My daughter spotted that first, and I thought, oh, that would be just so lovely in the studio. Now behind that is, I have 2 printer's drawers that are attached to the wall, and I've put stamps inside the cubbies and on top. And I'm running out of room, so I had to put this little cabinet of ink pads in front of it, but I can easily move it forward if I want to. that holds all the different inks. Again, Tim Holtz inks. But here's a better shot of the antique printer's drawer that's filled with different stamps and a few little knickknacks on top. And the other thing that I wanted to show you was this Lazy Susan, and it's a wonderful thing to have on the desk. I can spin it around if I want, and I've used these flower frogs. They're these glass containers that have holes in them, and one of them holds most of my scissors and tools that I like to keep close at hand when I'm sitting down. And this one holds either writing utensils or some of the things I use when I'm knitting, and some other tools. So that's a great way to store those. And then I also have this antique stapler and tape dispenser. The tape dispenser is a silvery color, but I do know that stapler is 23 karat gold. Where you see the gold, that's real gold. And I was so lucky to find that really dirt cheap at a local thrift store. And when I got home, researched it, I was amazed to find it was worth well over $100 because it's gold. So that was an amazing find. There's also a sugar holder, silver again, holding some clips, and an antique stamp holder as well. So the last thing I wanted to show you was this is an antique string holder, and this hangs from the wall, and you put the ball of string in the middle and then just pull the string out from the bottom. So I was thrilled to find that online. So that's, I guess, just the desk area of my studio that I wanted to share with you today. I hope that gives you a little better idea of what's sitting behind me when I'm filming my podcasts. So I hope you enjoyed this little tour. And in the future, I'll do some more areas of my studio as well and show you some other sections. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope it wasn't too shaky for you to see everything or too dark. So for now, bye-bye.